Good afternoon. It's February 16th, 2025, Sunday afternoon, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. You're watching Co-op for Two, broadcasting live from Champaign, Illinois. Today, as you can see, hopefully as you expected, we are reading a new case of Dear Holmes. For those of you who are not familiar with Dear Holmes, it is a subscription service. We call these generally play-by-mail games. It's not really a game, though. It's more like a mystery delivered to you once every 2 weeks or so. 3 letters now in a mystery and then a solution letter. So by the time you finish a mystery, you will have read 4 letters. The first letter sets up the case. We are helping Sherlock Holmes. And then we read the letters here on the stream, and we discuss them. Sometimes we discuss them over Discord between sessions. We play every week. And then in the end, you read the solution. We try to figure it out ahead of time. We've been doing this for several years now. Let me just check in with the chat, make sure everyone can hear me. Everything is going as expected. We've got a bunch of new people joining us today for a new set of letters. And I actually have a decision for us to make before we get started as to what letter we play, but we'll talk about that in a second. Let me do a little bit of bookkeeping first. Yesterday, we finished our playthrough of Masters of Crime Shadows, which you can see is way in the corner there. It's the second Masters of Crime game we've played, and we all really liked this box. Probably better than the first box, which was Vendetta, that we played. But really a fun experience. You can get Masters of Crime Shadows for like $16 now on Amazon, and sometimes they go on sale for even cheaper. If you like heist movies, I would highly recommend it. But the series in general has been exceeding our expectations, and there are 3 more games in that series to play. 2 more have been released, 1 more coming soon. We'll be playing those soon. On other matters, I think the live stream schedule will start picking up over the end of February and March. So if you're interested in joining me for some longer games, proper games, mystery games, Next few weeks will be good timing, and you'll see a couple reviews from me soon for games we've played recently. I'm not sure exactly what I want to play. We've got a couple of options, but if you're interested in helping decide what games we play over the next couple of weeks, you can stop by the Board Game Geek Guild for this channel. There's a link on the YouTube page, or stop in the Discord. Maybe we'll do our sci-fi marathon. Maybe we'll pick one of these long, super deluxe mystery games, expensive games that have been sitting on the shelf waiting for us. I'm not sure. Anything else to talk about? Let me talk about a little bit about our plans for these Sundays. So for the next 4 weeks, we'll be playing this case. After that, though, we're going to do something a little special. Anna, who's in the channel, is going to run an improv mail-based mystery game for us, much like the ones that Matt has done for us recently and in the past, where we'll get a letter and we'll discuss it and formulate a reply, and then Anna will craft a custom reply for us, and we'll do that for a few weeks and watch as the case unfolds. So if you're interested in a sort of a more unique experience, bespoke mystery game written just for us live, you could check that out. That'll start in a month or so. Okay, checking in with the channel. Any idea when the next installment of Seven Citadel is? Andy Corbett asks. Yes. Okay, so we're actually going to play another session of the Seven Citadel. Jonathan Warner has informed me that Monday works for him. So Monday, 11 p.m. Central Standard Time will be another 5-hour session of the Seven Citadel. That's a game that is not for everyone to sit through and watch. Andy Corbett has been commenting, though, and found that I made a very big mistake on our last session. Played the wrong scenario, basically. We'll talk about that on Monday. Anything else for us to do bookkeeping-wise before we talk about Dear Holmes? Okay, let me talk about something before we decide what mystery to play. Dear Holmes, I sometimes forget to say this, but when we play games on this channel, I sometimes mention that, you could imagine you're a publisher, you watch, for the mystery games, for a board game, it doesn't matter. You watch a playthrough of a board game, if you watch a playthrough of Pandemic, Matt Leacock and the producer, and Z-Man Games, the producer of Pandemic, aren't worried, oh, someone's going to watch a playthrough, so they're not going to buy the game. But you can imagine for these mystery games, it's a little different, because if you watch a playthrough, you're not going to buy that mystery game. You've already experienced it. There's no reason for you to buy it. Now, I do think still there's reason, in all likelihood, for every viewer that won't buy the game because there's a playthrough, there's someone else who will hear about it through a playthrough, watch a couple minutes and leave and then buy it. So it's a net benefit to publishers. But you could imagine that some publishers might be a little nervous about it. Dear Holmes is not one of those. They're very happy to have us doing these playthroughs. But I should say I have no relationship with this company. I am a subscriber. I have purchased the subscription to Dear Holmes myself. And you might consider, if this is the kind of thing that you enjoy, playing these yourself might be more enjoyable than watching and joining along with my playthrough, and it might make a good gift. It is not a cheap subscription. So what you're looking at here is actually the result of 2 simultaneous subscriptions. Dear Holmes has now offered what they're calling the Practice Club, which are the old mysteries that they previously ran a couple years ago. So I have a subscription to both. The normal subscription to Dear Holmes, where you get a letter every couple weeks that lasts for 12 mysteries or so, maybe 12 mysteries times 48 letters. Costs $200. So you're paying $4 or $5 per letter. And the practice club, which sends you the old letters, is about the same. It's about $20 per month per set of 4 or 5 letters. So this is not a cheap thing, especially it's not something you can replay. It's not even a game. It's just reading it. The reason I'm mentioning the price is because the only reason that we're able to play these really is because of the Patreon supporters of this channel. It's because you're contributing to the money that I can spend on games that I can afford to buy these and bring them to the channel and not stress out about the cost. All right, so that's that said. Now we have a choice. Our choice is whether to play one of the cases in the practice club. These are old cases, or the latest case. Now, it's a bit of a meta mystery here with Dear Holmes, because sometimes they label the envelopes. Okay. Sometimes they stop labeling the envelopes. Sometimes they're post-canceled and you can see the date. Sometimes you can't. Now, I have done a little deductive work of my own, and I noticed that some of these are the newest cases, and some of them are the practice cases, and they arrive in the mail interleaved. So what do you notice that's different about this set than this set? There's a difference, right? What is the difference? The difference between sets is in one, they have my name sentence cased, or title cased, with capital letters, and another, it's all lowercase. So that's my little deduction, how I separate which ones of these they mail me as part of this practice club and which ones are part of the new stuff. So I believe that the practice clubs are the title case. So these, I believe, are 2 complete mysteries in the practice club, which is really just old cases, we should call them. How old are they? Did they start from the beginning? Is this set of letters the first ever case ever released by Dear Holmes? I don't know the answer. It's possible that it's a case we've already played if it's not the first case. And here, I believe, is the latest case of Dear Holmes. So, the question I have for you is, what should we play? Does the group want to start with the practice club? I guess there's no reason for us to start with this intermediate practice club, which could be the second case ever made. We would start with the first practice case I ever got, assuming I've gotten all the letters. I mean, they're not numbered. Maybe that's a little tricky. Maybe we'd be better off doing one that comes in a set. You'll also remember that the way Dear Holmes used to do it is it used to be 4 letters that set up the mystery, 4 shorter letters and 1 solution. And the way they do it now is 3 longer letters and then a solution. So in total, same general amount of content, just put over 5 letters or 4. All right, so what's it going to be? Does the group want to play an old mystery from Dear Holmes as part of the practice club, which could be the first mystery they ever wrote? Or do you want to play the latest brand new case? All right, let's have a little vote here. So just type vote old or vote new. You just got to use the word vote. Vote old, vote new. Looks like people are curious about the old cases. Wow, everyone wants to play the old one. Well, seems unanimous. That's pretty unusual. All right. We're going to play an old case then. Should we try to see if it's the very first one ever made? I'm going to put the new one aside so we can stop the vote here. So let's see. I have two, as I say, these come unlabeled, but these all have the same stamp. So these probably are from the same set, and this is probably the first letter. I guess if we're going to play the old, we're interested in whether this might be the first case ever made by Dear Holmes. I have no idea. This whole, there's something on the monitor. This whole thing, yes, obviously if it's a mystery that we've already played, we won't play it. But this whole practice club thing is a very bizarre way to do this. So Dear Holmes, you subscribe, unlike many other subscription games, you just join the subscription whenever you start, and they start mailing you new letters. They're writing new letters every month or so. They can't really keep up with their claim of one per week. Sometimes it takes them 2 or 3 weeks. But if when you start subscribing, you just start getting the letters, and they never send out the old letters. They never reuse the old letters. A very odd thing. Then when they announced they were going to offer the older letters, it seemed very obvious what they would do. The obvious thing to do would be to let people buy sets of the old letters. That way, if you joined 6 months after they started, you would go back and get those 6 months of missing letters. And if you joined from the start but missed a year and then restarted, you would go back and order those missing year of letters. But that's not how they decided to do it. They basically said, hey, sign up, you'll get the old letters. That's it. You'll get the old letters on subscription once a week. What letters will you get? We're not going to tell you. What if I already have those mysteries? Tough luck. It's a very weird thing. Actually, the ideal thing would be to release a book of letters, but you can see if they're charging $4 or $5 per letter, that's a $500 book that they're missing out on if they send you a book. So I can see why they're reluctant to offer a book, but it is very odd that you can't order these old cases specifically. Okay, I am very curious what this will be. Now we've played games while we were in this, while Dear Holmes was in this 5-letter series. So it's possible we've played this, but we didn't join. Dear Holmes had been running for a while before we joined. So now we're gonna play one per week. All right, let me take a peek at this before you take a look. Okay, I don't recognize it. I want to make sure this is the first letter of the series. Okay, it's definitely the first letter of the series, and I do not believe we've played this case before. So here we go. Brand new case. Okay, it's from the Surrey Constabulary, Moss Lane, Godalming, Surrey, 16 November 1896, from Chief Constable Thomas Baker. Dear Mr. Holmes, permit me to introduce myself. My name is Inspector Henry Wilkins, and I am based at the Godalming Station in Surrey. I know from reading Dr. Watson's accounts your time is precious, so I will proceed to the matter at hand. I have a murder on my books, and although I have a suspect in custody of whose guilt I feel certain, several matters cast doubt that he is the killer. The facts are as follows. Let me pause here and make sure that the chat is not telling me we don't know the name of this case. No, we don't. But I guess we're going to find out. It would be nice if there was a list on the Holmes website about it. Okay, I'm not going to interrupt myself. I'll keep reading here. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Okay, the facts are as follows. The Hazlewood family, one of the richest within our jurisdiction, had, as of last week, 3 members. There was the head of the household, Jonathan Hazlewood, aged 63, his daughter Alice, aged 25, and a son named Simon, aged 22, who is away serving as a naval officer at Portsmouth. Mrs. Hazlewood died of consumption some 2 years ago. Because of their status and Mr. Hazlewood's friendly relations with Chief Constable Baker, our Constable Bull typically makes their grand old house on the outside of town, Hazlewood Grange, part of his regular rounds. On the 14th, Saturday, Constable Bull was approaching the house from around the bend on Tousley Lane. It was a little after 9 in the evening, and he could see lights on inside the house. Otherwise, the property was quite dark. The house is set back from the main road and does not benefit from the street lamps, but gas lamps line its drive. At the time of Constable Bull's arrival, they were not lit. As he approached the head of the drive, Constable Bull heard a blood-curdling scream, accompanied by a much deeper, quieter cry for help. Nearing the front door, he could hear people shouting, then a distraught housekeeper suddenly opened the door to him. The young servant summoned the constable inside with considerable urgency and led him to the parlor, where a truly bizarre sight awaited him. Mr. Hazlewood's daughter lay dead in the center of the room. Nearby, weeping in a corner, was a young man with blonde hair, later identified as Henry Johnson, Miss Alice's former fiancé and an old friend of her brother's. When Constable Bull questioned Johnson, he vehemently denied stabbing Miss Alice, for stabbed she was, and pointed to an open window. Johnson insisted that the murderer had entered through it and attacked Miss Alice as he and she were talking. I cried for help, trying to push him off. He said, showing Constable Bull pieces of a vase that the murderer had allegedly thrown at him. The killer, he noted, was spry, with jet black hair and a thin mustache, and jumped at Miss Alice from the window. He stabbed her, snatched her prized necklace, and took flight. As Bull searched the ex-fiancée thoroughly, Johnson begged him to give chase to the killer. Bull was unmoved, but the harder he searched for evidence, the less certain he became of Johnson's guilt. The bruises on Johnson's face appeared to support a confrontation, and a search of his person and the immediate surroundings turned up neither the necklace nor a weapon. Certainly nothing indicating he had arrived with ill intent. In fact, we found evidence to the contrary. He was carrying a ring bought from the local jeweler, supposedly to aid in his plan to win back Miss Alice. The condition of his clothing also failed to support his guilt. There were spots of blood on his shirt, but not nearly the quantity one would expect had he stabbed Miss Alice. When I arrived 30 minutes later, fetched by Mr. Hazlewood's trusted valet, Bull whispered, "I was certain Johnson had done it, and I'm starting to think I'm wrong." The constable had assembled Mr. Hazlewood's household in the study, a short distance from the parlor. I asked him and Constable Weeks to search the property. Meanwhile, I examined the scene of the crime to the sound of Miss Alice's howling black Labrador. When I arrived, the dog was bowed towards its deceased friend, collar buried in the carpet, which, on either side of Miss Alice, was stained with specks of blood. Her cats appeared less perturbed. The parlor was otherwise surprisingly clean, save for shards of the blue and white vase that had been thrown at Johnson. Our search of the grounds turned up further evidence that there might have been something to his story. We found no signs of a weapon, necklace, or upturned soil, but did find a set of small footprints leading from the property's entrance to the parlor window. There was no dirt on the window sill. We found no shoes on the property matching the prints. With this discovery, Bull and I began to take statements from the staff. I elected to begin with the valets in the study before interviewing Mr. Hazlewood himself, while Constable Bull spoke with the butler and the maid, Mrs. Violet Nugent, in the drawing room. He will write you with his own findings. The valets, William McClelland and James Larmore, were both assigned posts for Johnson's visit, and before that they were preoccupied with their usual responsibilities. McClelland's account was as follows. Mr. Hazlewood asked me to light the lamps outside close to 7. From then until 7:30 or so, I took care of the usual needs around the Grange. I spent 20 minutes organizing Mr. Hazlewood's dressing room, then another 30 restoring order to the library. Mr. Hazlewood spends hours in there poring over his extensive collection of maps. Johnson arrived minutes before 9, after which I joined Mr. Hazlewood in his study. He was worried Miss Alice's meeting would turn distasteful. Wanted me close, should we need to evict Johnson. Mr. Hammond was making rounds on the first floor, and I think Mrs. Nugent was cleaning out the scullery with Minnie. Everything was quiet for about 15 minutes. Then we heard something break, followed by 2 faint screams. I ran out and saw Mrs. Nugent, Minnie, and Hammond at the end of the hall, pushing against the parlor door. Larmore, Hazlewood's other valet, recalled the following. This day was rather ordinary. Miss Alice had a visit from her newer acquaintance, Mr. Cooper, close to 8. I was helping clean the kitchen when he arrived. I heard Mr. Hammond escort him out 10 minutes after, and then went about my business until hearing someone being let in again. Several moments after, Hammond informed me that Johnson had arrived and that I should assume my post, and was perhaps 15 before 9. I retreated to the drawing room across from the parlor and stood watch, like Mr. Hazlewood said. Not long after the turn of the hour, I heard something shatter, then a loud thud and a scream. Running from the drawing room, I saw Mrs. Nugent and Minnie struggling to enter the parlor. Hammond was there seconds later to help open the door. We were just breaking through when McClelland and Mr. Hazlewood came asking about the commotion. From there, McClelland and Larmore's reports converged. They pushed the door open past the fallen pedestal obstructing it and witnessed the bloody scene within. McClelland recollects stepping on several pieces of a vase as he stepped inside. Mr. Hammond entered first, asking Johnson what transpired. Mr. Hazlewood followed, furiously charging at his daughter's former lover. Fortunately for Johnson, Mr. Hammond was able to intercept him. According to Larmore, Miss Alice was found laying on the floor, her back stained with blood. Neither valet recalls seeing a weapon in the room. After discussing that fateful evening, we then discussed their employer. They each said Mr. Hazlewood could be mercurial when frustrated. When he's unable to find his sextant, for example, or when relentless pests inhabited the garden's crocuses. But his outbursts rarely go beyond a yell or a tossed book. Neither man shared strong opinions about Johnson. Of Miss Alice's newer acquaintance, however, Larmore displayed some mild apprehension. This friend, who Larmore believes has been eyeing the Hazlewood's money, was introduced to me as Miss Alice's new fiancé during my subsequent interview with Mr. Hazlewood. My daughter broke her engagement to Johnson because of his volatile spirit and her sense that his interest in her and our family fortune were one and the same. In the 6 months since, she met and became engaged to James Cooper, an up-and-coming Queen's Counsel who resides in Guildford. News of this shocked Johnson. He responded with a series of terse letters to Alice in which he claimed she could not marry another. He also stated that she owed him money, which he expected to be repaid. This couldn't be further from the truth. The reality is that Johnson has more gambling debts than any man could manage. His last letter to Alice, begging for an interview this evening at 9, arrived this morning. I tore the letter to pieces, insisting that she decline. But she wouldn't agree, saying that Johnson had promised to pester her no longer if she granted him the interview. I could not sway her, so I discreetly invited James to pay a call to our house before the appointment, but even he was unable to dissuade my daughter. He asked to be present, an idea which I supported, but Alice believed this would only inflame the situation. She begged him to return to Guildford, and he grudgingly agreed. I told the servants to be on hand in case events were to turn sour. Upon Johnson's arrival, a moment before 9, McClellan joined me in the study, and Larmore posted himself in the drawing-room across from our parlor. Hammond saw Johnson to the parlor and informed me, then escorted Alice to the room, retiring to the adjacent halls for the duration of the visit. I told the housekeeper and maid to go about their business, but to keep alert and close by, like Hammond. McClellan promptly joined me in the study. I suggested we play cards. It was but 10 minutes after 9 when I heard something drop to the floor and then distant screams. McClellan and I threw down our cards and ran to the other servants to see the other servants trying to open the parlor door. They managed to burst in, and we rushed over, and that's when I saw everything. My Alice, motionless, and Johnson right beside her. I confess I almost killed him, but Hammond, in his good sense, urged me to let the law take its course. As the good man held me back, I then noticed my daughter's necklace was gone from her neck. She had been wearing it when Johnson arrived. The diamond Hazlewood necklace has been in the family for at least 200 years. It is a priceless heirloom, so I demanded of Johnson, "What did you do with it?" He cried, "The killer took it," alleging that the murdering thief fled through our parlor window with his knife in one hand and Alice's necklace in the other. I was having Hammond search the parlor with Minnie and Larmore watching Johnson when Constable Bull arrived. Finally, I asked Mr. Hazlewood why the lamps were not lit. He could not answer. He showed me to the master valve controlling the gas flow a short distance from the front door and insisted that the lamps had been lit for Johnson's arrival. He explained that the curtains were drawn, so he had only noticed they were extinguished after leaving the house in search of help. We are unsure of who closed the valve or why. All my instincts first urged me to believe that Johnson was the murderer, and for that reason I dispatched him to the cells. But if I am to continue to detain him, I must have an answer to all of the evidence that seemingly points to another perpetrator. I beg you, give me any advice you can. We are presently attempting to confirm Mr. Cooper's whereabouts, but please write me should you need any additional information, and of course I will supply it. You should expect a letter from Constable Bull in the near future. Yours sincerely, Inspector Henry Wilkins. That's our first letter. All right, let me file it away and we will review it. Any initial observations, suspicions, theories? So this is the system we use so that we can mark up these letters without writing on them. The first few months we played, I just wrote on the letters, but they're so expensive. It's nice to be able to trade them for old letters. If I was playing this at home, I would just make scans of these and write on the scans. But because that would slow down our playthroughs, I've come up with this as the next best thing. All right, so now when I'm reading these, it's a little hard for me to follow along. So it's good for me to reread these, reskim these and see what we note. Okay. Okay. We've got a possible murderer, but not sure. All right. So here's the head of this family, Jonathan Hazlewood, 63, daughter Alice, a son who we haven't met who's off away from home. No reason to suspect him. Then we've got a couple constables. I guess we don't really care about them. All right, here's our date, 14 Saturday. Constable happens to be around the house, so he hears right when it happens, a little after 9. He hears, he could see the lights on inside the house, but it's dark. Someone has turned off the gas lights. That's already a very suspicious thing to the police here, who note it and don't know who turned them off. That seems like a clue to us, though. Okay, not after 9. The part that it's dark is the clue. I guess that'll come up later. Okay, so he runs in. What does he hear? He doesn't hear the scream yet. He approaches, as he approached it. Okay. He hears the scream and then a quieter cry for help. Why is the cry for help quiet? I guess this we think is Johnson calling out for help, maybe, or one of the family. Okay, so he goes to the front door. He hears people shouting. They open the door to him. He sees the daughter in the center of the room. So living room is right facing the door, I guess, or nearby. The young man with blonde hair, this is the ex-fiancé, Henry Johnson, the former fiancé, who's also an old friend of her brother, if that's relevant to us. He denies stabbing her. She's stabbed. He points to the open window. He says the guy came in through the window, stabbed her, took her necklace and left. He says, I cried. So that's Johnson claiming he cried for help. Trying to push him off, he says. And he does, okay. He shows the vase that the guy threw at him. Okay. And he describes this culprit. Jet black hair, thin mustache. That's either an accurate description or he's trying to frame someone. No discussion yet whether that matches the description of the current fiancé. Stabbed her, snatched the prized necklace. Why not just grab the necklace? Why has he killed her? Okay. Johnson says, please go chase the killer. That sounds like a reasonable thing if it's true. They can't find anything on him. He's got no necklace. He's got no knife. He's got bruises on his face. Support a confrontation, yes, but he hasn't said this guy hit him, so why does he have bruises? He says he tried to push him off, but maybe he's just so worked up he isn't mentioning it. Okay. He was carrying a ring that he's bought, trying to win her back, supposedly. Spots of blood. Well, this is a pretty important clue, right? Cop says if he stabbed her, he would expect a lot more blood. That's a little harder to fake. Okay, 30 minutes later, and now they're not so sure. The detective comes, they're not sure. They search the property. They make note of a dog who is sitting with Miss Alice. The carpet is stained with blood. Specks of blood. Otherwise, it's in good shape, and they find the vase that they say was thrown at Johnson. No sign of a weapon or disturbed soil, but they did find a set of small footprints. And specifically, interesting, they're going from the entrance to the parlor. Now, maybe that catches your attention. Like, why are they going from the entrance to the parlor window? But you might imagine if someone turned up planning to kill her, they'd first go to the front door. When they found that locked, they would go around. No shoes matching the prints. So it's starting to become harder to see how this guy could have killed her and disposed of the necklace, the shoes, his shirt that had blood on it. Like, it's becoming more and more far-fetched that this guy killed her. All right, and we're going to hear later about the interviews with the others. So he talks to the valets. We're told that the man of the house, Hazlewood, expected this meeting could go bad, so he had everyone sitting and waiting. McClellan says, here's the two valets. McClellan says he was told to light the lamps, which he did. They did their normal chores. Johnson arrived minutes before 9. Then they go to talk. I think I put this one in backwards. I mean, the suspicious among you will be trying to look for ways that this Johnson could have killed her, but what has he done with the shoes? What has he done with the necklace? Can't swallow a necklace. Okay, so he says, stand by, this could go bad. Then they hear the breaking vase. They hear 2 screams. In this case, he says 2 faint screams. We thought one was loud, one wasn't. They push, and then the door has been shut by something. We're going to hear about that later. That's very suspicious. That's the most suspicious thing, that someone seems to have blocked the door. I think that's right. Pushing against the door, you could imagine it's just locked, but why would it be locked? But I don't think it is locked. I think there's a pedestal up against it. And then the question is, why is there a pedestal up against it? But let's get back to that. Okay, then the other valet gives his description of what happened. First, she met with Mr. Cooper earlier in the evening, close to 8. So an hour earlier, the other guy comes, and we learn later it's because the father wanted him to come and talk her out of this. Hammond escorted him out 10 minutes after. So he was only there for 10 minutes? Interesting. And then 15 minutes before 9, he goes back to the parlor. And then the turn of the hour, I heard something shatter. Johnson had arrived. Okay, so let me just get the timeline right. Johnson arrived at 15 minutes before 9. And he goes back like he's told. And then he hears the vase break shortly after the turn of the hour. Okay, so we've got a fairly clear timeline here. And then again, struggling to enter. I find that door blocked thing very troubling. They pushed the door open past the fallen pedestal. I see. Okay, so we do have an explanation that might be innocent. Okay, so that's important. We're told that the pedestal fell and blocked the door. Okay, it's at least plausible. Pedestal held the vase. It's also possible, though, that that's why the vase fell and broke. Not because someone threw it at him, but because he pushed it over to block the door and the vase ended up breaking. Maybe if you were doing that, you wouldn't let the vase break. You'd just sort of gently push it over. Okay, that's important. So my suspicion about that blocked door maybe have an innocent explanation. Okay, they all come in. They assume it's him. They charge at him, but Hammond holds him back. Who is Hammond again? Why does he keep coming up? He's not one of the valets. He seems to be coming up in some interesting ways. Is he the chief butler? Who is Hammond? Where do we hear about him? Where do we hear about him for the first time? The valets are William McClelland and John Moore. Hammond was there seconds later. Where are we introduced to Hammond? Does anyone remember? Here. Head of household, Jonathan Hammond. So he's like the chief butler. Okay. No, sorry. That's Hazlewood. That's the guy who owns the house. Where is Hammond? What does the chat say? Chat's discussing the theory. I'm going to check in with the chat in a second. I just want to, why can't I find where Hammond is? All right, let me check with the channels. All right. Would there be no footprints from the back window out of the property? Intruder did not fly back out the window. Yeah, that's a good point. The lamps would mean someone knew where the valves were. Yes, good point. Rob says the case seems to be from 2022, the problem at Hazlewood Grange. The dog didn't bark. Was there an accomplice? That's an interesting idea that the two of them could be working together. Andy is agreeing with that theory earlier about maybe the vase wasn't thrown but was pushed over. Why wouldn't the ex remove the thing blocking the door when everyone was trying to get in? Well, maybe he was concerned about Miss Alice and rushing to her. Classic dog who didn't bark. Multiple people talked about what they heard, but no barks. Is Hammond the new fiance? No, Cooper is the new fiance. And Cooper is missing. I like the idea that it might be Cooper and this guy, but that doesn't make too much sense. Why would they be competing for her? Where is our Hammond? We know he comes up here. Cooper was the new one. Here we've got a mention of Hammond. I heard Mr. Hammond escort him out 10 minutes after. So he does seem to be, and here's Mr. Hammond again, was making rounds. All right, so he must be one of the butlers. I don't know why we're not finding where we're explicitly told. He's not a valet. He's one of the butlers, though it seems. But he's the guy who was supposed to turn the gas on, that right? That's why I'm a little suspicious of him. All right, let's keep doing our recap here. Okay, so they see the pieces of the vase. Hammond enters first. Hammond stops him from attacking him. Her back is stained with blood. Her back is stained with blood. She's stabbed in the back. They don't see a weapon. They don't have strong opinions about Johnson. They don't have opinions about Johnson, who's the new guy. No, Henry Johnson is the former fiance who's been caught. Okay, so when we're asked about it, they say they don't have opinions about the old fiance who's sitting here in this room with her dead body. But the new guy, they do think is after the money. The valets think they're after the money. This is sort of important because the father seems to have the opposite opinion. The valets, I need to reread that, but the valets suspect the new guy is after money. Not the guy who's there, but the guy who's gone, they think is after money. Kind of interesting. Valets don't have any opinion about the guy who's sitting here being accused of murder, but they don't like the new one. But the father says that she broke her engagement to the old guy because of his volatile spirit. And her belief that he's after money. So she has an opposite view than the valets, it seems. In the 6 months since, they've been broken up for 6 months since, she got engaged to a new guy, James Cooper, who's a Queen's Counsel. Queen's Counsel, what does that mean? He's a lawyer of some sort? And then Johnson, her ex-fiance, is shocked. He sends letters says she can't marry anyone else and that she owed him money. That doesn't sound like someone who's in love. But we're told Johnson has gambling debts. He begs to talk to her. Father doesn't want to allow it. She says, I got to talk to him and he'll leave me alone. So the father invites the new fiance. So the new fiance knows about this meeting with the ex. He asked to be present. He wants to make sure that the ex-fiance doesn't get back together with her. But Alice says no. Then the old guy comes back a moment before 9. Everyone sets up. She meets with him. They go playing cards. He heard something hit the floor. Then the screams. They couldn't open the door. They burst in. He's right beside her. He notices the necklace is gone. He cried the killer took it. Knife in one hand, necklace in the other. Why were the lamps not lit? He didn't have an answer. Showed where it was, a short distance from the front door. Inside or outside, we don't know. That's kind of important, right? Because if we think someone turned them off to not be seen, it's sort of important whether they had access inside or outside. And they don't know where Mr. Cooper is. Okay, let's talk now. Could it be the son who's away? He returned and was there. That's why the dog didn't bark as he recognized him. Why would the son kill his sister and steal the heirloom? Wasn't it Johnson who's friends with the brother? Yes. No tracks from the scene of the crime. So is it an inside job, or did Johnson come up with a clever solution to get rid of the weapon and necklace? Footprints were described as small. What do you make of that? Queen's Counsel is a senior lawyer appointed by the monarch. Well, okay, let's think about this for a second. It seems we've got a clear description of the killer from the guy who's in the ex-fiance. He's seen him very clearly. Jet black hair, thin mustache. That seems like it should be very key to our investigation. Either he's the killer and he's lying about what this person looked like, or this really is the description of the person. And we don't know if that description matches the new fiance. It's odd that we have the valets suspecting the new fiance and the father and apparently the daughter herself suspecting the old one. Would there be any sense that they could be working together? It doesn't seem like it. Because why would that happen? It's not like the daughter is on the outs with the new fiance. He's come. He wanted to be present during it. But it would make sense if the new fiancé was standing outside the window or something, waiting to see what happened. Maybe if he somehow convinced her to get back together, then he would have a reason to kill her. But jumping through the window, that seems very unlikely. I guess the thing that is immediately suspicious is the idea that this guy who came to see her, the ex-fiancé, has figured a way to kill her and steal the necklace and get rid of it. Does he have an accomplice outside of the window? And his plan is kill her, hand off the necklace, and claim that someone stole it. And somehow, I guess that's not much different. I mean, you can't hide a big bloody knife. So if we think he handed it off to someone, then that's just as good as saying there was another suspect that came in and killed her. You don't get much out of, unless he's hid it in the room or come up with some other way. Seems very seems very unlikely you could get rid of the knife and this necklace and plant footprints if you don't have an accessory carrying them out. And if you have an accessory carrying them out, you might as well have a separate killer who did it. Another thing that's slightly odd is if the pedestal held the vase, isn't it a little weird that like it would get knocked over in front of the door? Like that's a weird. Well, however you imagine the room, you would expect the killer comes in through the window, kills her, and gets out through the window. Why is he over by some pedestal by a door? If he threw the vase at our guy in the room, wouldn't you expect that vase to be on a pedestal near the window, not near the door? It'd be a pretty odd room setup where the window was near the door. Why was the window open at night? What season are we in? That's a great question. Do we have a description of the cop? I mean, I say it's a great question, but let's not forget, back in these olden times, they thought fresh air was so good for you, even if it's cold out. So they might be blazing the heat and keeping open windows. But he's walking. The constable is walking the house. A little after 9, lights on, no sense of snow. It's in November. It's in November. Okay, so it's, it could be chilly, but not necessarily freezing cold. I mean, it's an odd situation. If this guy who was meeting with her ex-fiance really did kill her, there's a disconnect there, right? There's a real disconnect. Let's think about it for a second. Let's say this ex-fiance is all about money. He just wants money. So he wants to steal this necklace. It seems to me you've got two possible paths for this guy. Let's think about this. You've got two passable paths for this ex-fiance to have killed her and robbed her. One is crime of passion, unplanned. He's met with her. He's tried to talk her back into getting back together with him. She says no. He loses it. He kills her in anger, jealous rage, grabs her necklace, unplanned. Well, that can't be what happened because it's been only a matter of minutes and he's caught in there and he doesn't have the knife, he doesn't have the necklace, and he's already got a description of the guy all planned out. So it can't be a spur of the moment thing, right? So it has to be, if we suspect this guy who's in the room with her, then it has to be a carefully planned thing. He's carefully planned how to kill her and get the necklace and dispose of it, right? Give it to an accomplice. So what's the main problem with that theory? What is the biggest problem with that theory? To me, it seems the biggest problem with this, there's two problems with it, but they're both revolve around the same thing. If it's a premeditated plan to get the necklace, then why kill her? The difference in crime between robbing someone and murdering someone is huge. People don't just plan out an intricate scheme to steal a necklace, and in that intricate scheme involve a brutal murder where you're still left at the scene of the crime. That doesn't make sense. If you're going to all the trouble to plan out how to steal this heirloom necklace, your plan would not involve you being in the room and brutally murdering this woman. Even if you don't care about her life, you would just come up with a better scheme. So that's why it seems now my gut makes it hard for this guy in the room to be the murderer or be involved in this. I suppose it's possible that they have some plan to steal the necklace and she gets killed by accident. She puts up a fight, she gets killed, but why come in there with a knife? It's too convoluted. But why kill her? Why kill her? You could kill her because she's figured something out and you need to silence her. But what could she have figured out during the course of that meeting that she hadn't figured out already? And if she sees the guy stealing it and she knows him, then maybe she has to be killed. But if you're after money, it's better to marry into the family with money than to steal a piece of jewelry. Bruises on the face. Yes, why does he have bruises on the face? Could she have hit him and slapped him? That's where the bruises come from. The accomplice is possibly a member of the household. Well, now that's when we're getting back to the idea, is it Hammond, the chief butler? But it doesn't, you know what? The butler stabbing the daughter, stealing the necklace, it just seems unlikely. Why such little blood? If she was stabbed, why such little blood? And why is there blood in her back? Was she stabbed from behind? If she fought back, that's why she was killed. Then why is she stabbed in the back? Maybe it's not about the necklace. Maybe the son doesn't want to share the inheritance. That's an interesting idea. I kind of like this idea a little bit. Like, what if it's not about the necklace? What if the brother has put up the whole plan to kill the sister? They are one of the richest within our jurisdiction. And the son named Simon, who's away serving as a naval officer. This is an intriguing idea. It's an intriguing idea that you wouldn't kill the daughter to steal the necklace, but what if it's really just about killing the daughter, and we've got two men trying to... Well, Henry Johnson's a friend of the brother. That's the ex-fiance. And it's 6 months. Boy, that's a long game if you're planning it just to kill. But what if the brother is behind it and just wants her dead? But why kill her? I mean, there's one person who knows about the meeting. The brother doesn't know about the meeting unless he's unless he's getting information from them. It's the new fiance, though, who we should be most suspicious of. He knew about this meeting. He left right before the meeting, so you could easily imagine him leaving and going around back so he could, turning off the lights so he could watch and listen to their discussion. What if the new fiance comes, tries to talk her out of meeting with this guy? She says, not only am I meeting with him, but I'm planning to get back together with him. So the new fiance, Cooper, leaves. He comes around back. That's the trail of the front entrance to the window. Remember, we see a trail of footsteps from the front entrance to the parlor window. So the new fiance leaves. He comes back around and he listens in. And he hears her say, she hears maybe Johnson tell her, I love you, and this guy's been lying about me. You think that I'm in debt and whatever, but I'm not. All those letters were fake. They were from this new guy. We got to go to the police. And she says, you're right. You're right. And then the new fiance jumps in, kills her, takes the necklace. Doesn't quite make sense. Why not kill this other? If this other guy knows this information, then he'd have to kill him too. Otherwise, why bother killing anyone? Okay, hard to make that work. Do we know she was actually stabbed with a knife? It seems to be implied. Can you read the description about the dog? Something about his collar being buried in the carpet. Yes, sure. All right, so here it is here with the dog. They walk in. They can hear the sound of Miss Alice's howling black Labrador. He's howling at this point. The dog was bowed towards its deceased friend, collar buried in the carpet. So his head is down on the ground mourning her. Then on either side, it's specks of blood. They find footprints from the entrance to the parlor window. No dirt on the windowsill. He buys a ring. He's trying to win her back. It's not even, it's in his pocket though. He's not even had a chance to pull it out. He's got bruises. Where was the part about the stab on her back? Here, laying on the floor with her back stained with blood. Also, if this guy's clean counsel, I mean, he's got a good job, this new guy. Why would he? And he lives in a different town. Why would he kill her? Seems like the most likely thing here is, all right, let's think about it differently. Does it not seem like the most likely scenario is not that he killed her? What if he didn't kill her in a crime of passion, but premeditated, spurned lover? If I can't have you, no one can. So his goal, the ex-boyfriend's goal, is to kill her in anger, in spurned jealousy. If I can't have you, no one can. It's not an uncommon thing. So he wants to kill her. And he knows he's going to be suspected of it. So he's come up with this elaborate scheme where, on one hand, it's going to look like he did it, but on the other hand, he's going to set up the evidence to make it look like he didn't and look like she was killed for her necklace. So then at least you have a motivation to do a very premeditated, complicated scheme that ends up with her dead. So I propose that why would you come up with this careful scheme just to get money by stealing the necklace? But maybe that's not right. Maybe you've come up with a complicated scheme to kill her and deflect blame away from yourself. Be better to have some scheme where you've got an alibi in the pub, but if you can't come up with an alibi, but that would mean if the ex-fiance is killing her premeditated out of jealousy, then he can't have an accomplice. That would be a different kind of crime. So then he would have to find his own way to get rid of the knife and the necklace, because maybe he doesn't really care about the necklace. But that involves some complicated thing through the window that we don't know about. And how does he get the gas turned off? The lights turned off? Now, all right, here come the jokes about the animals doing it. Is the no soil on the window sill an important clue? I think it is. Yeah, it is an important clue. They do say that there's small footprints heading from the front entrance to the back door. So they are like human footprints. But it is an interesting question. Like, why do you have footprints? Where did those footprints go? Yeah, let's read that again. How do you have footprints? Let's see if they give us a direction. Yes, they do. So how do you explain this? It says, we did find a small set of footprints leading from the entrance to the parlor window. And then they say there's no dirt on the windowsill, suggesting that the person hasn't climbed through the window. But how, even leaving aside the issue with the no dirt on the windowsill, why do we not see footprints leaving? Mike, the person came in through the window, but there's no dirt. But how did they get from the parlor window to anywhere? If there's no dirt, they didn't come in, and no extra person was found in the room. Why don't we have footprints of them leaving the window? Especially if they were running away. Could someone have slipped out of the room between the killing and the arrival of the men? Well, I think actually no, but you raise a very interesting question. And I think that's partly about the slamming down the door. Like, no one gets in alone, right? No one gets in alone. They break down the door as a group. So no one is the first one in who could have pretended they came in, but really came in through the window. But DJ Moneycut says someone climbed up the house. Now that's an interesting idea. That's an interesting idea. Could you have come in and then gone up when you left, gone up the house, climbed up the house? That's a very interesting idea. That's a very interesting idea. That would be an explanation for why you have no footprints leaving. The pedestal could have been used to leave the room. Not really. It's blocking the door. It is going to be interesting to hear why he had bruises on his face, too. The bruises would make sense if he was fighting with this girl, though. If someone did, let's say it's an inside job, and someone did go up the window and sneak back in. Do we have anyone who shows up late to this thing? They pushed the door. They all pushed the door open. I want to see where Mr. Hammond is. When does he show up? He escorts them in. The two valets break in the door. Hammond entered first. Hammond was making rounds. Is it possible we have an inside job by Hammond or something, and he's going up the building and coming in through a different room, or one of them? Still doesn't seem like a motive. I mean, it's a crazy motive. If Johnson were fighting the attacker, he should have knife wounds. That's a good point, unless the vase hit him in the head. All right, well, lots to think about. I love the case with the perplexing set of facts that you can't be explained. Love that. That's my favorite little gimmick of these mysteries. All right, we're going to end it here. If you want to discuss it in the next week, you could discuss it on, if you have some theories, you could post in the chat. I mean, not if you know the answer, of course, but, or you could jump in the Discord, and there's a channel on the Co-op for Two Discord specifically for our play-by-mail games. You can talk about it there. Walk backwards. Okay, otherwise, I will see you next Sunday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. Same day, same time, and we will read letter number 2. I'm curious how this turns out. I'll see you next week.